that whatever Tulsi Gabbard says is her opinion. She's a senior advisor on intelligence to the president, but she's not the only one. And we have to go back to the Central Intelligence Agency. And as far as I've been able to discern, nothing, absolutely nothing has changed in the Central Intelligence Agency in terms of its findings that ultimately shaped national policy since Donald Trump took over. That means that you've got to go back over the last 5 years. Obviously, we don't have access to those findings directly, but those findings have not changed. So Tulsi Gabbard's opinion, while I certainly value it and I'm confident that she's telling the truth, is something that he can wave off and express complete disinterest in. That's very easy. And that's not the first time. We've had presidents that dismissed intelligence findings left and right. I mean, we got to go all the way back to the summer of 1941 when FDR directed the Navy to maintain the Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor. And the commander-in-chief of naval forces in the Pacific immediately wrote to the president and said, this is a serious mistake. We're presenting a target array for the Japanese, even though we don't think the Japanese will attack Pearl Harbor. At that point, everybody thought they'd attack the Philippines. And President Roosevelt said, thank you very much. Keep the fleet where it is. So we've had presidents wave this kind of thing off before. And I don't know that Mr. Netanyahu had to work very hard. I think he's got right now in the Senate, in the intelligence community, inside the White House, large numbers of people who are telling President Trump, Iran is really a pushover. It's not strong. We can crush it. And you need to go ahead with this. This is in the interest of Israel and the United States. Obviously, I don't think it has anything to do with the interests of the United States, but I think that's where we are.
You just heard Colonel Douglas Macgregor, decorated combat veteran, former Defense Department official, and one of the sharpest critics of America's foreign policy elite, expose a disturbing truth. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu didn't just influence Donald Trump on Iran. He flipped him against his own intelligence community. Judge Napolitano asked how Netanyahu managed to turn Trump against the findings of the U.S. intelligence community, including MI6, Mossad, and even the IAEA, all of which agreed Iran is not developing a nuclear weapon. Macgregor gave a chilling answer. And here's what it reveals. U.S. foreign policy isn't driven by facts or national interest. It's driven by powerful lobbies, political pressure, and foreign agendas. Let's break it down. First, let's be clear. Iran does not have a nuclear weapons program. That's not just an opinion. It's the consistent conclusion of every major intelligence agency: American, British, Israeli, and international. Even Mossad, Israel's own spy agency, has repeatedly said there is no evidence of an active Iranian weapons program. The IAEA, the global watchdog responsible for monitoring nuclear activity, confirms this again and again. So why did Trump suddenly change course? Why did he publicly rebuke his own director of national intelligence? Because he wasn't making a decision based on facts. He was responding to pressure. Pressure from one man, Benjamin Netanyahu. Douglas Macgregor makes it clear Trump wasn't swayed by logic or evidence. He was influenced by a network of people inside Washington who told him what he wanted to hear. People aligned with Israeli interests, pushing a hardline stance on Iran. And at the center of it all, Netanyahu. Macgregor doesn't believe Netanyahu had to work very hard. Why? Because in the Senate, in the White House, and in the intelligence community, there are plenty of voices ready to tell the president whatever serves Israel's agenda. Trump simply picked the narrative that fit his worldview and ignored the inconvenient truths. Just like Roosevelt ignored warnings before Pearl Harbor. Just like Bush ignored warnings before Iraq. Trump chose to believe what served the Zionist lobby, not what served American security. Macgregor draws a powerful parallel back to 1941. President Roosevelt was warned that keeping the Pacific Fleet in Pearl Harbor made a target. But he dismissed the warning. And we know what happened next. History repeats itself. Not always in the same way, but often with the same arrogance. Trusting political allies over military reality. ignoring expert analysis in favor of ideology, and putting American lives at risk, all to serve someone else's agenda. In this case, Israel's regional dominance strategy. Let's not pretend this is about peace. Israel wants uncontested control over the Middle East, and Iran stands in the way. Not because Iran is building nukes, they're not, but because Iran challenges Israeli power. It supports Hezbollah. It backs resistance groups. It refuses to bow to U.S.-backed regional order. That's the real threat, and Netanyahu knows it. So he pushes the U.S. to take action, not because it's good for America, but because it's good for his vision of Israeli supremacy. And tragically, Trump played right into his hands. Here's the uncomfortable truth your TV news won't tell you. The United States is no longer making its own decisions. The real power lies with a network of pro-Israel lobbyists, think tanks, and political donors who shape public opinion, fund campaigns, and place their allies in key positions across government. From the Pentagon to the State Department to the White House, the message is clear. Support Israel no matter what. That's why Trump could ignore his own intelligence agencies. That's why he could publicly shame his own DNI. Because the real loyalty in Washington isn't to the Constitution. It's to the lobby. This isn't just about Iran. This is about who runs America. If a foreign leader can manipulate the U.S. president into reversing course on critical national security issues with no consequences, then something is deeply broken. And worse, the American people are kept in the dark. They're fed a constant stream of fear. Iran is dangerous. They're hiding weapons. They must be stopped, while the real motives stay hidden. Meanwhile, U.S. troops get sent into harm's way. Tensions rise, and the world edges closer to war, all to serve someone else's interests. In conclusion, Douglas Macgregor gives us a rare glimpse behind the curtain. A look at how one foreign leader manipulated the most powerful man in the world, not through force, but through influence, pressure, and deception. This isn't conspiracy theory. It's documented reality. And if we don't wake up to it, we'll keep watching America dragged into wars that don't serve our people, only the agendas of others. Stay tuned for more analysis right here on The Informed Perspective. Until next time, stay informed and think critically. First, I think we need to understand that whatever Tulsi Gabbard says is her opinion. She may be a senior advisor on intelligence to the president, but she's not the only one. We have to go back to the Central Intelligence Agency. As far as I've been able to determine, nothing, absolutely nothing, has changed in the CIA's findings that ultimately shaped national policy since Donald Trump took office. That means we need to consider the past 5 years. Obviously, we don't have direct access to those findings, but it appears they haven't changed. So while Tulsi Gabbard's opinion is one I certainly respect, and I'm confident she's telling the truth, it's still something the president can easily wave off and express disinterest in. And that's not new. We've had presidents in the past who ignored intelligence findings left and right. You can go all the way back to the summer of 1941, when FDR directed the Navy to maintain the Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor. The commander-in-chief of U.S. naval forces in the Pacific wrote to the president and warned, "This is a serious mistake. We're presenting a target array for the Japanese, even though most people expected Japan to attack the Philippines." Roosevelt replied, "Thank you very much. Keep the fleet where it is." So we've seen this behavior before. I don't think Netanyahu has had to work very hard. Right now, in the Senate, in the intelligence community, and inside the White House, there are plenty of people telling President Trump that Iran is weak, a pushover, and that we can crush it. They're telling him it's in the interest of Israel and the United States to go ahead. Obviously, I don't believe it has anything to do with America's real interests. But I think that's where we are.